Welcome to Green Chat. We're going to take a closer look at an upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. My name is Cleeze. Let's get started. Alright guys, and welcome back to Green Chat. You guys can ask me questions and I can give you my opinion to hopefully formulate your own on the upcoming MMO, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So today we're going to keep going on with Q&A, our question and my opinion, because that's all it really is. Also, I'm going to play the, what's going on, up here and over there is going on in the background is the stream pre-alpha shaman gameplay of the developers playing Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I thought it was kind of cool in the first episodes I had that. Took it away for a minute just because I got a new camera. I wanted to try the full screen thing, but the video was not syncing right with the audio. My lips were like, and then, yeah, so... And I think people liked it. I kind of did. So I'm going to keep going with that, just going through the entire stream. It was like an hour and some change. So that's what's playing in the background if you're interested. You can check out the whole stream on YouTube or go to pantheonrisethefallen.com, or excuse me, pantheonmmo.com to check that out. So jumping back into questions, we're still on questions from Robert. He has some pretty good questions here, so let's start with those. So first question is, I know Cleeze is a fan. I know Robert, so he's referring to me in the personal way. So I know Cleeze is a fan of collaborative relations between players and MMOs. Rather than throwing random people together in a group and having them insult each other all the way through a dungeon before parting ways, what is Pantheon doing to ensure more respectful and earnest interactions between players? So that's a great question. What is it doing to ensure it? I think the environment itself is going to take care of this. Many MMOs right now, there's a lot of instancing and stuff like that, or theme parking, or you can just put yourself in a queue, jump in there, and then get out and get into a different queue if you don't like it, or if you want to be a troll, you can just jump between queues and being a-hole, whatever you want to call it. But moreover, how Pantheon is going to be dealing with this is, or how the game will deal with this is, you are not going to be jumping into instances. You're going to be in a persistent world with persistent players. So everybody you see, you're going to know. Everybody you group with can be on the same realm as you, or same shard or server, whatever you want to call it. So what's going to happen, let's just use an example real quick. Let's say you join a group and something drops, you didn't get it, and you're like, I'm so upset about this, and then you pull a bunch of mobs and then kill everybody because you're upset, and that's your way of dealing with that type of situation. So what's going to happen then is those people who group with you, be 5 other people, would be like, wow, dude, write your name on a list or take your name down. And they don't necessarily need to flame you at all, but not flame you, but like go around screaming in chat how awful you are. But you just pretty much ruined or blacklisted yourself from probably 5 players, and then there's those players' friends, because they'll probably be like, oh dude, guess what just happened? This is ridiculous. Never group with this guy. So your actions really have a lot of impact in your environment with other players. Where in other MMOs right now, you can do whatever you want and you'll never see them again. Where in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, you can do whatever you want, but you'll definitely see those people again and again and again. Now, not to say like, you're going to be like just hanging out with the same 10 people, but the community starts building itself kind of, organically. And I remember playing the older, at least playing EverQuest. I mean, you didn't even have to be that special or popular. You could just be pretty much a nobody. Like, for instance, I was kind of a nobody. I was just just a random guy. I was nothing special. I was just in a really laid-back guild, stuff like that. We weren't even near the cutting edge or whatever you want to call it. And I would do things and people were like, oh, hey, you're that guy. Or I would do something stupid and they'd be like, oh my God, you're that guy. Because I did do something stupid one time. I can go into that later if you want, but it's interesting how quickly it will impact your play and those around you, and it's really to your benefit to play nice. And if you like griefing or trolling or stuff like that, this game really doesn't reward you very much, in the sense that it takes a lot of effort to get to higher levels. Now, there could be maybe a guild of people that level up, and that's their intent. They level up to be griefers, but quickly people will figure out who you are, and it's harder to switch between alts and stuff like that to hide your identity, as far as trying to jump into a group and be like, you have no idea who I am. And I really don't think, excuse me, if you're like an amazing player, I don't think that would influence people to be like, all right, let's bring this guy because he's so amazing and it'll help us get this done quicker or better or whatever. So that's really the way that they're going to deal with that, is your behavior is directly affects you. Your behavior will really dictate what's going to play out for you in this world. Oh, and I'm not sure if I mentioned that first question was from Robert, and he's actually got a couple questions here, so we're going to keep going through them. He's got like maybe 3 more questions. So next he's asking, in your opinion, what is the defining characteristic of Pantheon that you believe will separate it from the pack of other MMOs? So the defining characteristic, I think, will be, let's see, this is kind of a defining characteristic. I think it's going to be that it's a persistent world, and no instancing is really going to change a lot of things for most people. At the same time, a lot of people have already played with those type of characteristic, or that characteristic in an MMO where there is no instancing. But actually, I think 2 things: no instancing and a death penalty. So that'll be something new that people haven't dealt with in quite some time. I mean, a repair bill is really no big deal in most MMOs right now, or a little run back time. But a death penalty and no instancing for the most part. There might be some cases of instancing here and there, maybe like in an encounter or something, but that will, I think, be its defining characteristics as far as setting it apart from every other MMO that's out right now. Yes. Okay. All right. So next, Robert is asking, what is Pantheon's approach to lore? Is it more like is it more sandbox-like, where you find small interweave stories throughout the land, or is there a central driven premise / overall story? I definitely prefer the former, as the latter would makes the world feel smaller. So I agree with you there. Let's see, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is going to take more of an approach like a sandbox. You'll run through a couple of towns and stuff like that, and you'll see some stories here and there, but I think the environment's going to tell a lot of the tale, and just the areas you run through, it'll kind of, a lot of the lore will be fed to you that way. They also have a perception system in the game, which I'm sure everybody's heard to death about, but that would be, for instance, if you're running through some ruins or something, and you have the high enough perception to discern something off of some hieroglyphic story on the wall, you can interact with that then, and it will depict to you lore of that area. So the area or the environments will be kind of telling you their story through you interacting with those environments. Not specifically, hey, here's this guy with a quest and he sends you over here and there's some cutscene with dialogue or just text that says, well, here's what's happening over here in these ruins, and there's some bad guys and they want to, steal our food and release rats on the town at night. So what you're going to be, running through the environments, finding different things. They've mentioned you're going to kind of stumble across these things, and it'll teach you about the environment. And if you are interested in the lore, if you're looking for it, you will find it. So that's how they're going to drive their lore in their game. There will also be major quests like epic line quests and stuff like that, which takes you through all the environments, or will likely take you through a lot of the environments to complete them. Usually epic quests are very large in scale and cover a lot of world or territories to complete them. Next question is, are there any plans for microtransactions that you know of? So there was plans initially for microtransactions in the very start. I just lost my little thing here. So there was plans for it. I've covered this a few times, but as of this moment, me saying this, they have removed their in-game store, and there is no plans for microtransactions because they feel like that might be a gateway to pay-to-win environment where you can buy stuff and give yourself an edge over others where you otherwise wouldn't have that. All right, and lastly, I love the fact that quick travel. Excuse me, this is the last from Robert. I love the fact that quick travel will be limited or non-existent. It makes the world feel much bigger. However, it can also backfire after many hours are put into the game, and walking through the same forest over and over again can become a chore. Will there be anything to keep the environments fresh when traveling through them? If I have to go back and forth between a city A and city B 20 times in a month, Will there be anything different in my 20th expedition from my first? The best way I could answer this is I can't be for sure on the 20th time you'll have a great time with something different happening to you. However, I'll just kind of describe, at least in previous games, what it was like for me and what I think it will be like in Pantheon. So running between city A and B usually you won't have a great need to do it very often. So, I mean, you might enjoy the traveling, to be honest, but as you level up, what's going to happen is you will get spells to increase or help you with travel. And then as the community levels up as well, when you go to a city hub, you will be able to ask for spells from higher level players, which will assist you with travel. One is like Spirit of the Wolf, really common spell that everybody probably knows about, but that increases your run speed significantly. And the higher level you get when you cast that spell will affect you greater. So, bottom line, will it be different? Probably not. They probably will have like maybe events and stuff like that, but that's going to be very rare where it would be changing. Other than another thing that would be different is, you might go through there at daytime. I do notice this one thing. In certain zones, this will be a thing. If you're going through at nighttime, maybe the undead has risen or something like that. If you're going through daytime, they're not there because they only appear at night. Stuff like that might be different for you. Just traveling at night in general might be different for you depending on your race. But the biggest thing that really you can impact this with is speed travel spells. So the more you level, the amount of time it takes you to get between city A and city B will diminish. And then once you get to a certain point, you probably have a community of friends, or you likely will, to a point, or there will be people, enough people sitting around going like, hey, I'll port you here for this, to those ruins I was talking about, I think in a different episode, like Druid ruins or something for that instance. And you'll be high enough level to really utilize those to get between cities fast for yourself. But again, that's going to be much later in the game. So at early levels in the game, you're usually going to stick to your central hub. If you do travel to one city or the other, there's so much benefit to you, and it's actually kind of risky, usually. Some cities might be kind of positioned closely to each other, but that would really just be my response to this. So yes, it will get better, and it might be different depending on the spells you can use at those levels. But if you're in general at the same level going back and forth, or leveling very slowly going back and forth a lot, it's not going to change very much for you. So that might be a downside for you. However, there's music when you travel, and you might run into people, might run into people. So you never know. You might find an adventure where you didn't think you would. Okay, so next up we have a question from, excuse me if I'm butchering your name. They call me Cleeze the Butchers of Names because I butcher names like the Butcher from Diablo. But no, I don't. Yeah, I do. So the question is from Sile Bonjour. I think I'm saying that right. I hope I am. Correct me if I'm not. You should just come over to my house and correct me with a face slap. So he's asking me, have you decided on the class that you're most interested in? So the class I'm most interested in is Dire Lord. Dire Lord has my interests. I've normally always played Warriors for some reason. I've always been in Warriors, but this time around, the Dire Lord is going to be my pick out of the gates, and so far has my interest. But it'll be a bit before the game's released. But for right now, I don't know why. It's actually never interested me in the past. Like SKs or Blood Knights or Death Knights or those kind of classes have never really pegged my interest. But this time around, I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. But in general, I'll probably play a tank. I've always liked tanking, or a healer. But I don't know why. Also, I might want to be a healer. But at the moment, Dire Lord, like 98% Dire Lord, 2% is kind of fluffing around up there, like other interests. All right, next question up is from DJ Dunkman, or DJ Dunkman. Again, butchers and names, but I'm DJ Dunkman. He's a good guy. It's the way to go. So he's asking. I know he's a good guy, just because with a name like DJ Dunkman, like come on. So the game appears to be somewhat similar to Ashram's Call. AC was difficult and challenging, and advancement was considerably slower than modern MMOs. As Pantheon seems to be marketed, one problem AC had was that, at least in my experience, it was heavily dependent on magic for any character type to be truly, functional. Is there any indication as how central magic will be in Pantheon? Also, how will magical abilities be acquired or learned? It's a great question. So, like most MMOs, when there's magic involved, it is pretty stinking central to game mechanics. However, at least in this case, you're at least going to need a healer. But as far as like DPS goes, for instance, let's use that for an example. Your damage dealers, let's say you have all melee or physical DPS characters. So the best way I can answer that question is, let's see here. So magic will definitely play a vital role in Pantheon. Melee will also typically plays not as vital a role, but it has the moments where it is pretty vital. Because, or moreover, is, at least let's use damage dealers for example. Melee have a much easier time. It's really case dependent. Really, I think whatever your flair is, or whatever your flavor is, you should go with it. So if you're a melee kind of guy or a caster kind of guy, that's good. Typically, casters can deal significantly more damage than melee in almost every case, especially in the game like Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. It's probably going to be the case. However, melee have an easier time dealing with aggro management, where casters kind of have to be more like, they can cast some spells and then the threat will jump way up. So any type of spiked damage will cause more significant threat versus less spike damage over time. So there might be instances where it's preferable to have melee or more melee and less magic, or vice versa, depending on the type of environment. Or, you know, that's where you're really going to find that crux there as far as in the DPS realm of magic versus melee. Also, I mean, you know, you got moments where you don't care whether you gain threat and you get to a nuke phase and you just want, you know, as many magic users as you can, so when you enter that nuke phase, you can just destroy the guy. Even if you do rip threat, he'll just kind of run around or whatever. So, it really depends on what you want to do there. Now, I did look up a little bit about Ashran's Call, and that game, I really don't know anything about it, pretty much because it got shut down. I wasn't able to, there's not a whole lot out there on it. Besides, I saw you do a lot of auto-attacking, that's very similar, but I don't think is dependent. I'm not sure when you say there's a train coming. We'll just skip ahead real quick to pass this train up. And now you know I live near a train. So, is there any indication? So, magic will be rather central. I kind of forget where I left off with the train thing, but I guess I was trying to compare back to Ashran's Call. As far as Pantheon goes, I'm not too sure about Ashran's Call of how central magic was to it, but it's not going to be required in Pantheon. You could do just fine with all melee groups on regular group content. Now, when you raid, obviously you're going to want to bring a mix of melee and casters, but I would say they'll probably be evenly matched or balanced with their abilities as far as their usefulness goes, depending on the situation. But typically across the board, casters will get favored maybe 2 to 1, I would say. So typically that just always seems to be the case in MMOs. I'm not sure why. And I think Pantheon will also be in that situation, or same shoes, is a 2 to 1 ratio, where ranged or casters is usually more valuable than melee. The second part to that question is, how will magical abilities be acquired or learned? So in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, I'm pretty sure it's going to follow suit with, you'll have a guild or whatever you're a part of. So, excuse me, not your actual guild, but your class hall or class guild, so to speak. Let's say you're a cleric and you go to a go to a cathedral or whatever where your class trainer is, and there'll be vendors there with common spells for your class to use per your level. So you'll probably buy scrolls and learn them, or read the scrolls, learn them, and then memorize them to your hotbars for use. Also, you will acquire spells from dungeons and creatures and stuff like that. They'll drop spells. And then some of the most difficult spells to learn or earn will be from NPCs out in the world. They've gone into details on this, where there'll be NPCs out there and hanging out, maybe like a mage in a tower, or some, at least in the cleric sense, maybe like some fallen cleric in some deep dungeon that like had this special spell that he had created and had since been lost, and you do things to, first you've got to get there, which is going to be challenging, and then you'll probably have to follow a subsequent maybe quest or task to gain access to that knowledge and learn that spell, which I think is really cool. So that's going to be a couple different ways how you're going to learn your spells in the game. All right, guys, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you do have any questions for me, please leave them in the comments below, and I will address them in subsequent episodes. Please like and subscribe if you like what you saw, and see you again really soon.